topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Draw me close to you, never let me go. I lay it all down again to hear you say that I'm a friend.
Good day. The Almighty Creator desires a deep personal relationship with you. My name is James Robertson. I'm a researcher, publisher, and teacher regarding the matters and truths of the Almighty Creator, whose true name is Yah, the eternally self-existing. I've been actively serving him since 1993, over 32 years. If you're not actively serving Yah, then by default you're serving Satan. My objective is to show you how you can make a big difference on earth and qualify for a position of high esteem in heaven for eternity. It's important to understand that as a believer, just being good is not the point. It's relationship with Yah that counts. Without this, you will be in a very unpleasant place in heaven with no way out. My aim is to show you how to get close to Father. If you're a good person without a clear relationship with Yah, then you're in a spiritual no man's land, and you will not enter heaven when you die. The Creator has said regarding unbelievers, why would I want someone to spend eternity with me when they do not believe I exist? God's calling everybody on the planet to be involved and serve him, help him to have victory over Satan. Fundamentally, we each need to learn to see things on earth from Yah's perspective. Please visit my website at www.endtimeissueministries.org or email me on james@endtimeissueministries.org for more information. This evening I'm going to talk about the Almighty Creator. Yah is indifferent to unbelievers, and then I'm going to talk a bit about why I believe. So, overview. Religion is full of people who are seeking to evangelize the unbelievers. The assumption is that the Almighty Creator, whose true name is Yah, wants to save the unbelievers. However, if you get close to Father so that you can hear him clearly, you will find that he says he's indifferent. In fact, the incessant praying for the lost is a source of great frustration and irritation to him. Why is this? I'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a moment, but think about it. Why would he want a whole bunch of people in heaven who don't know him, don't have a relationship with him, who just prayed some prayer, an altar call or whatever, sometime? There's this massive belief that you just go out there and you manipulate people to pray a prayer and that's the job done. No. That's the beginning of the beginning. You need to teach them about Father. You need to teach them so many things. So this is based on the article 2023-0408. The Almighty Creator Yah is indifferent to unbelievers. So to start off with, we were created to be friends. Father created this universe, the solar system, planet Earth, the plants, the animals, and human beings for one reason. He desired friends, people who would enjoy his creation with him, draw close to him, and have deep personal relationships with him. Nothing else matters to him. See the article 2021-0201, Why Are We Here? So Father Yah is totally disinterested in those who are not at least at some level seeking to become friends of his. See the article, Yah, the Creator, desires to have deep personal relationships with people who become his friends. Folks, this is such an important point. Yah created us. Well, let me rephrase that. Yah created Adam and Chava. Since then, we've just been procreating, and Yah hasn't really had much say in who you are or who I am. And it's important to have that realization. We're just a result of progressive breeding. Not that Yah wants us in heaven. He wants friends. And then he wants you in heaven. So if you want to get to heaven, you need to make an effort to get to know him. And if you make an effort to get to know him, you'll get to heaven, provided you believe he exists. And then it's important to understand that unbelievers were not anticipated. When Yah designed the universe, the throne room, and everything, he did not anticipate that there would be people who did not believe in him. The result was that when, in response to the contest, see 2021-0402, the essence of the rules of engagement in the contest, he started to encounter people who did not believe that he existed, and he had nowhere to put their spirits when they died. The intention was that all would believe and would qualify for different ranks in heaven. See, where are you headed? This is such an important point to realize, folks. When Yah created the throne room, he expected to have people that believed and had some sort of relationship with him, and depending on how much effort they made in that relationship, they would qualify for some level of gradation in the throne room, from the outer skirts of the throne room up to high thrones, high up on Yah's throne. And if you don't get that, I'm sorry to tell you that you are probably not on the playing field. So if you don't believe at all, or you once upon a time prayed some little prayer and then you've carried on as though it doesn't exist, you're not going to make it into the throne room, my friend. In fact, for the first group, you're not even going to make it into heaven. So the consequence of this is that when an unbeliever dies, their spirit remains with their corpse, or they're harvested by a servant of Satan or a satanic messenger, because they're sufficiently evil to be of use to the forces of darkness. Over 100 billion people have died as unbelievers in the 6,000 years plus since the creation of humankind. As such, these demons, also known as ancestor spirits, are a source of intense irritation and frustration to Father Yah. Think about it. He created us to have deep relationship, to be able to participate in our lives, for him to be front and center in our lives, for us to do things with him, to have conversation with him. He envisaged millions and millions of people in deep relationship. And then he ends up with over 100 billion people who don't believe he exists, and say all sorts of stupid things and do all sorts of stupid things. And then, as we discussed last week, another 20 or so billion people today who at some point believed and then carried on as though he doesn't exist. And to counter that, today about 1.5 million people who do at some material level believe he exists and have some modicum, generally not much, effort to have a relationship with him. So if you're a believer with unbelieving family and or friends, recognize that Yah is totally indifferent to their lot. You're wasting your breath and you're irritating him by praying for your unsaved family and friends. If you care, if you care, it is up to you to do something about it. But don't expect Father's help. He created us to have a will. He created us to make decisions. Not for him to climb in there and overrule their will, overrule their decisions, and somehow make them believe in him. It defeats the whole object, which is to have people who exercise their discretion, exercise their initiative, exercise their intellect to say, I get that there's a creator and I want to have a relationship with him and I want to please him and I want to do what he wants me to do. So if you're a believer with what's called a heart for the lost, recognize that Yah is indifferent. It's your issue. As I said a minute ago, he's concerned about the roughly 1.5 million true believers who are progressively dying off and falling away. I refer to the article, The Demographics of the Kingdom of Yah, in December 2015 that I discussed last week. The 1.5 million is all that's left to Yah in the contest. And he urgently needs to see them strengthened. And as I mentioned, the majority of those people are relatively elderly and they're dying by the day. And there's not a lot of young blood that's coming in. There is young blood, but not a lot. The number's going down and down and down and down. And Yah wants more friends. He's only got one friend at the moment. There's only about 20 overcomers. Those are the people who really count for something in Yah's estimation of the world. So what we're talking about. 20 people on the whole planet today who at some level are pleasing to Yah. And then another 1.5 million who are doing something to qualify to get them into the throne room. And if you have a heart for the lost and you're running around having crusades and this, that, and the next, and getting people to respond to an altar call and pray a little prayer and then leaving them to get on with their lives as though it never happened. I have bad news for you. Assuming you're one of those 1.5 million, you're going to get to heaven and Yah is going to say to you, my goodness gracious, look at what you've done. There are X 100,000 or 1,000 or whatever people in the outer darkness because of you. Because you evangelized them, you got them to pray a little prayer, and then you ignored them. Yah is concerned today about getting the 1.5 million to get closer to him. And the ones that don't believe at this stage, he's not really interested in. And then the other side of that is that the only way it's going to change drastically is for some people, or to start with one person, to come to a place of deep anointing, start healing the sick, raising the dead, walking on water, and all the other miracles that Yeshua did. People who are walking in Yeshua's example and are reaching people. People need to experience the power of Yah and then walk in the power of Yah. And in the process of doing that, come to a place where they have a deep relationship with Yah. And then they can start worrying about the lost. Until we're there at a significant level, forget about the lost you're wasting your time, you're wasting your breath, and you're not going to be rewarded for it when you get to heaven. If, of course, you're going to get to heaven, because maybe what you're doing is such a waste of time and you're not even going to feature. So as I've said, Yah is concerned about the 1.5 million that are on earth today, that at some slight level have a relationship with him. For them to get closer, they need to abandon the wrong beliefs about Jesus, God, the Lord, Sunday, Sabbath, cross, etc., and turn to Yah in full truth. See the article 2023-0401 Schedule of Beliefs for a list of the most important truths that I teach. The entire ministry website, www.endtimeissueministries.org, is devoted to helping those people to turn around and become strong so that Yah may have friends and win the contest. Yah's number one priority today is for people to get that this whole thing is about having friends with him, about being his friend, and then doing everything you possibly can for you to get to be his friend. It's going to take you a couple of years and some hard work, and then doing whatever you can to help others to become his friend. And whether the others are currently in part of the 1.5 million, or there's some of the others, that's incidental. The focus is inspire people, challenge people, lead people, guide people to seek to become friends of Yah. And if you're not on that journey, if you're not making a real effort to get to become a friend of Yah, you need to start. Forget about all the others, my friend. If you are not on course to become a friend of Yah, your life is a waste of breath and a waste of effort. So in conclusion, I hope that what I've just said clarifies Yah's position with regard to unbelievers in a manner that enables you to respond to the situation in a manner that's pleasing to him. And I say again what I say regularly. Yah is not concerned whether you are black or white or anything in between. He's not concerned if you're African, Asian, American, Indian, Caucasian, whatever. He's not concerned whether you are Islamist or Satanist or Jew or Muslim or Christian or Buddhist or whatever. He's not concerned whether you're short or tall, thin or fat, rich or poor, educated or uneducated. He wants you to become his friend. And the only thing that's getting in the way of you becoming his friend is you. Please think about it. It's time for change. Look at your life in the light of what I taught last week, what I've taught in the last few months. Back issues on the website, back issues also on relationship with Creator Radio. I'm going to carry on with the article 2021-0502, Why I Believe. So some time ago when I wrote this in 2021, so it's over 4 years ago, it occurred to me that while I speak with great confidence regarding the existence of the Almighty Creator, whose true name is Yah, the eternally self-existing, it might be helpful to share a few of the experiences that give me this confidence. This may or may not help you directly, but I hope it will challenge you to grow to a point where you can have similar experiences. Now, I want to make one point clear. I came to believe at a microscopic level when I was about 13 or 14, when I was confirmed in the Anglican Church. I came to belief in a powerful level, at a powerful level on the 12th of March, 1993, when I was on the point of killing myself And Yah spoke to me audibly as clearly as you can hear me now in a locked room and said, phone Ian Peters, he has something you need. And I went to Ian, and Ian shared about his living relationship with the Creator and led me in prayer, took me to his church, and helped me to get on track. And I've stayed more or less on track with some ups and some downs the past 32 and a half years. Because I believed, because I had that experience, and I know that I knew then, as I know now, that he exists, that he's real, that he's not my imagination. So what I'm going to share with you now is to help you understand that there is a huge amount of evidence available for those who seek. But to seek, you have to believe he exists. I'm not telling you this to evangelize you. I'm assuming that the reason that you watch my program is because you're a believer, even if it's at some microscopic level. So as a preface, I was confirmed in the Anglican Church at the age of 13. I grew up in an Anglican family where my mom was Church of England, my dad was Presbyterian, and went to church moderately frequently. At the age of 13, I was confirmed and had a very limited conversion experience that moved me to the standing of believer. I subsequently gave limited service, including as an altar boy, from the age of 19 for about 4 or 5 years, at which point I walked away from the church because I was offended by the attitude of the priest and the hypocrisy of the church. I progressively backslid to a point where by 1991, I was effectively atheist, and I got into an adulterous relationship with my secretary. So it's nearly 40 years to 38 years. Well, I forget the first 24 years. I walked a sort of road of sort of believing. Probably enough to just scrape into heaven, but no more than that. And most of that effort was in the 4 or 5 years that I served as an altar boy and carried the cross every Sunday at the communion service. Then on the 12th of March, as I said a minute ago, in 1993, Father spoke to me audibly, and I want you to get this. He spoke loudly, as clearly as you can hear me now, out loud. James, phone Ian Peters. He has something that you need. So, in a sense, I'm blessed because I had that experience that put me on the right path. I don't suggest you get your life into such a mess in order to happen. And you need to be aware of the fact that my father in particular was a deep believer with quite a strong relationship with Father. And he was praying for me intensely because he knew the space I was in. So the adulterous relationship came out in the open in early 1993. And I then discovered I was deeply in love with my mistress, but could not be with her. As I said, I ended up in a hotel room figuring out how to kill myself when at about 7 a.m. on the morning of the 12th of March, 1993, in a locked hotel room, the Almighty spoke to me audibly out loud, and I knew instantly who it was. He told me to phone Ian Peters, a friend, business associate, and Ian shared his living relationship with the Almighty and led me back to the Almighty. At that point, I clearly got the message that I had been on the fast track to hell. I repented, turned around, and started strenuously seeking to build my relationship with Father. Since he'd spoken to me audibly, it never occurred to me that he would not speak to me again, so I went forward expecting to hear from him. And folks, one of the tragedies of the present generation is if you say you speak to, if Father speaks to you, people say, crazy, so-and-so was the last prophet, or How do you know it's him or whatever? I know it's him. How do you want me to prove it to you? He speaks with his still small voice in my spirit, in my heart, in my head. And he wants to speak to you, my friend. He created us so that he could have relationships. So don't come at this nonsense that he doesn't speak today. That experience of the Almighty speaking to me, coupled to a realization of heading for hell, has kept me more or less on track ever since. I threw myself into serving him who had spoken to me. I started going to church several times a week, listening to Bible teaching tapes, worshiping at every opportunity, reading the Bible and everything else I could get my hands on, and I grew rapidly in my relationship. What I want you to understand is what I'm going to share with you in a couple of minutes did not just somehow happen because I said, "Hi, God, I believe you exist." It happened because I got a deep revelation that he existed, and I put in a serious amount of effort. Say again, getting up at 5, worshiping for an hour, on my knees for an hour, reading the Bible for an hour, same in the evening, listening to worship tapes and teaching tapes in the car whenever I was driving, going to church, taking notes, marking up my Bible, Sunday twice on Sundays, often Wednesdays as well, going to home group. I was serious. And the result was, as I'm going to share with you now, Yah met me accordingly. And you can have similar experiences if you put in a similar amount of effort. And I want you to understand that serving Yah, having a relationship with Yah, becoming a friend of Yah is not about some slipshod, nammy-pammy, pray for 5 minutes when you think of it, worship for 5 minutes when you think of it. It's about saying, you know what, Yah, I believe you exist. I know you exist. You're important. I want to be close to you, and I'm going to do everything I can think of doing and everything that James Robertson tells me to do in order to get close to you. So then fast forward to the end of 93, on a 2-hour drive to celebrate Christmas with my sister, the Almighty gave me a message for the Anglican priest who would be officiating in the church. It was the first time I'd actually gone to a stranger and spoken in the name of the Almighty, so I pushed back hard. I did not want to do it. Throughout the service, the Almighty kept reminding me to speak to the priest. At the end of the meeting, as people were leaving, I went up to the wife of the priest and very tentatively said to her, "I have this message from the Almighty." She was exultant. She shouted out at the top of her voice, "Trevor, this brother has the word we've been waiting for." We became friends, and they invited me to minister in their main church on a number of occasions. This experience encouraged me considerably, and I've given many other people messages from the Almighty since then, not all of which have been so gratefully received. What I would say to you is, when you are learning to hear Father clearly, it's one thing to feel fairly confident in yourself. It's another thing for that confidence to go to a point of going up to another human being and saying, "You know what, I believe the Almighty wants to say the following to you." It's daunting, but you got to do it if you want to grow, if you want to hear him, if you want to become his spokesman, spokeswoman, servant. If you want to do things for him, you got to get from a point of being your own little huddle to going out and helping others. Then on the early morning of the 2nd of January 1994, Father put his hand on me. That same end of year, 93, I was reading the book on the night of the 1st of January, 94. I was reading the book Good Morning, Holy Spirit by Benny Hinn. Now, please don't come at me about Benny Hinn. I know there's a whole lot of stuff around Benny Hinn today. I'm not interested. At this time, he was a highly anointed servant. That's how I know him. That's how I remember him. And it's not your job to judge him or tell stories about him or whatever. If he's not in line today, it's between Yah and him, and he's probably more in line than you are. Stop telling stories. Stop judging. So I read the book, Good Morning, Holy Spirit. I could not put it down, and I was deeply impacted by Benny Hinn's story of his encounter with Father Yah. About 3 a.m., I went to bed, and I was lying on my stomach, and I prayed, Father, I desire to know you the way that Benny Hinn does. I must have prayed that, 20, 30 times. And after some time, my bedroom was filled with a mighty roaring sound, and I experienced intense pressure pressing me into the bed, which I subsequently understood to be Father. Now, you must understand that my unbelieving wife was in the bed next to me. She didn't hear this. I woke the next morning with a strong anointing, infilling of the Spirit of Yah. My new secretary arrived for work in tears. Her brother had committed suicide. I held her hands and prayed for her, and what felt like an electric current passed between us. She looked at me wide-eyed and immediately experienced supernatural peace. Numerous other incidents followed, including healings, etc. But my church did not recognize me because I'd not been to their Bible school and they'd not taught me. So my ministry was largely low-key, and that's one of the huge errors of much of the Christian church, is they don't allow servants to be led by the Spirit. A few months later, I was in a motor vehicle accident where I was late to catch an airplane, and I was speeding on a winding mountain road when I came around a corner and hit a pool of mud, and I lost control of the car. It aquaplaned, and it slid sideways on the bend. There was an earth little edging, probably about 6-10 inches high. The wheels slid into that. They should have stopped, and the car should have just rolled down the bank. It didn't. As the car slid, I cried out to Father. His messengers, his angels, caught the car, picked it up, laid it gently at the foot of the slope. It was about 10-15 foot high slope. The car should have rolled down, but instead my pen and my diary, which were open on the passenger seat, remained in place, and they weren't displaced at all, and I was not injured or even shaken. And that's available to anybody who truly believes. Anybody who's saying, Father, I thank you that your messengers encamp around me to protect us. I thank you that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Folks, it's powerful. There are two realities on earth today. There are people who have this sort of experience, who, as I've said, are a very small number, and then the rest of the world. They don't understand each other. Certainly the rest of the world doesn't understand people like me. And if you follow in my footsteps, they won't understand you either. Then a few months later in Malawi, the assembly falls under the power of the Spirit of Yah. A few months later, I was in Malawi ministering in an assembly. And this is just a little rundown building in the middle of nowhere with no windows, no doors, tin roof, about 50 people. And the power of the Spirit flowed through me, and eventually almost the entire assembly of about 50 people was lying on the floor, sobbing as they were convicted of sin and other things. I laid hands on the first few, and they fell under the power, and then the whole assembly ended up on the floor. An amazing experience. And if it hadn't been for my church and all the other nonsense, I could have had those experiences much more frequently. But I had to go to Malawi in order for Father to be able to use me in an environment that they didn't say, why haven't you been to Bible school? You haven't been ordained by this church, etc., etc., and all the other nonsense that is pervasive in organized religion. Because the reality is that religion is organized by the satanic realm in order to stop people having a relationship with Yah. Because the fundamental reason for this whole mess the world is in is that Yah and Satan wagered, and Satan wagered with Yah that at the end of the 7,000 years, there wouldn't be a single person in relationship with Yah. And then Malawi, 1994, again, the next night, in fact, Yah speaks through me. The next day, I went to a meeting with the General Secretary of the Assemblies of God in Malawi, together with the two pastors who'd been at the meeting the previous night. After a few minutes of conversation, Father told me to move the coffee table out of the way because he was going to slay this man in the spirit. I got up to walk towards him, and he stood up to meet me. While I was still about 3 feet from him, he just was knocked sideways by the power of the spirit that was on me. Boom. No, nobody to catch him or anything. He just went flat on his face on the floor. Father immediately started to speak through me. I had no thoughts or control over what came out of my mouth. I was just the vessel that Father was using to speak to this man. If you have experience of the power of speaking in tongues, which is a gift of the set-apart spirit from Yah, you'll know sort of what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is speaking in tongues in English. I had no intellectual engagement with what came out of my mouth. It came out of my mouth, and I said, my goodness, that's interesting. And for about 20 minutes, Yah spoke to this man by my mouth in the first person and commended him and said he was calling him to do this, and that if he was obedient, the following would happen, and so on and so forth. And then I moved to the next man, and the same thing happened. I got some distance from him, boom, over he went, and Yah spoke through me again for about 20 minutes, half an hour. And then the third man, boom, down he went. I then sat down, I thought, okay, that's finished. And Father started speaking to me through my own mouth and told me that he was calling me in those days I only knew the cross, to the death of the cross, the death of the stake. It sounded quite impressive. I thought, hey, that's kind of grand stuff. Hey. It's not easy to die the death of the stake in reality. And he spoke through my mouth to me for about half an hour. So this whole thing went on for about 2 hours. In all of this, Father spoke to me through me in the first person. I subsequently understood that this was the level of anointing that Yahushua, incorrectly Jesus, walked in throughout his ministry. And that is why Yahushua is reported as speaking as though he was the Almighty. So if you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, Yahuchanan, the first 4 books of the so-called New Testament, you'll find that there are verses where Yahushua speaks as though he is the Almighty. And that's a record of Yah speaking through Yahushua in the way that I've just described. And the people around Yeshua don't understand that it's Father saying that through Yeshua. They put it down and they attribute it to Yeshua. And that's part of the confusion, that people think that Yahushua is Yah. Then fast forward, a whole lot of things happened. Day of Atonement 2014, from August to December, receiving dictation. I subsequently lost the above, I had other experiences, quite a few. I subsequently lost the above anointing through a brutal divorce after I discovered that my wife had betrayed me and she lied to the church, and the church took her side without even investigating what was going on because of their Jezebel-linked lies about divorce. So fast forwarding after many other experiences to around the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, in 2014. For a period from August to December 2014, I was walking so close to Father that I was hearing him precisely most of the time. And he was giving me regular revelation in the form of short statements, which I recorded immediately in a pocket notebook, which are on the website. Look at the page Important Insights near the top of the website. This was a dramatic experience of really hearing Father very clearly on a sustained basis. There have been other experiences that are outside the scope of this broadcast, but I hope you can see that once I committed to serve Yah, I started to have dramatic experiences. And it's not because there's anything special about me. It's because I chose to make the effort. If you go to the website, hover your mouse over the top left-hand corner, home, to the right of that little triangle, hover over that list of about 4 or 5 web pages, one of which is 7 components of drawing close to Yah. You can download it as a Word docx or a PDF, or you can read it online. Download it, put it into practice, about 72 pages of guidelines that I produced at Yom Kippur in 2014 about how to get close to Father. Put that into practice. It'll take you a couple of years to really get down to it, fasting, prayer, worship, etc. And I'm pretty confident by the end of that, you will be getting close to Yah. He wants you to get close to him. So in closing, what is the state of your relationship with the Almighty Creator? I'd like to ask you to critically examine where you are relative to him today. Do you talk to him constantly throughout the day and allow him to lead you in every possible way? Do you worship him at every opportunity? Have you clearly and unambiguously heard him call you friend? If not, you're failing in your life purpose and you'll be bitterly disappointed when you die. If you now come to belief, please pray along the following lines. Father Yah, I come to you in the name of Yahushua, and I believe that you exist. I confess my sin of unbelief, and I repent of my unbelief, and I ask you to forgive my sin. I now commit my life to you, and I ask you to take me by the hand and lead me into deep relationship with you. I ask you to fill me with your spirit and to change me and help me to become the person you want me to become. I ask you to help me to find people who can help me and help me to find books, websites, articles, and other resources that will help me. I ask you to show me what I can do to actively serve you and lead others to deep personal relationship with you. I thank you for saving me. There's a period of 8 days from a sincerely coming to belief for the first time, during which there's extreme grace to help you. See the article, Critical Actions on First Belief for actions you should take immediately. I think that page is at the bottom, right at the bottom of the menu. And then drop me an email at james@endtimeissueministries.org so I can help you, pray with you, pray for you, counsel you, etc. And please don't hesitate to email me. I love to get emails. I love to hear how things are going, and I love to help people. That's my mission. That's my calling. So in closing, thank you for listening. Please send me your questions to james@endtimeissueministries.org. Please email me to join the mailing list at james@endtimeissueministries.org. If you decide to draw close to the Almighty, please let me know, and I can connect with you by Zoom, Teams, email, LinkedIn, Facebook, WhatsApp, or telephone so that I can help you with your journey. I hope to connect with you again next week when I will continue to explore how to become a friend of the Creator. Work with me to make a way for Yahushua to return in victory at the end of the millennium and make his enemies his footstool. So I'm going to say good night to those of you who've been walking with me for a while, because you know what I'm about to talk about. If you're new to the channel, please stay on. I've got a bit more to share with you. And I say again, Father wants you to become his friend. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're an outright Satanist today, if you believe in anything, whatever. Yah will help you to clean up. You make a quality decision to seek relationship with him, and he will meet you. I'm here to help you. I'll pray with you. I'll pray for you. I'll guide you. I'll counsel you. I will do anything I can to help you to become a friend, because there's nothing more important to me in this life but to help you to become a friend. So go for it. Those who are leaving, cheers. Have a great weekend and a great week. Good night. For those who are staying behind, let's carry on. So in closing, who am I? James Robertson. I have a doctorate in engineering and I'm a retired military commander. I now work as a management consultant. I have over 32 years' experience of actively seeking to draw close to the Almighty, following a dramatic encounter with him on the 12th of March 1993, when he spoke to me audibly in a locked room and I knew for certain that he was real. In learning about Father, I applied my deep-seated aversion to failure born out of an accident in early childhood, coupled to my engineering and military training of rigor and preventing failure, to my seeking of knowledge about Father. This journey led to numerous supernatural experiences, prayers answered, and clear communication with the Creator. It forms the basis for what I teach in these programs. See the video, Why Seek Relationship, for an overview of what I believe. Please visit my website at www.endtimeissueministries.org. The ETI version of the Bible with the correction of translation errors is on the ETI Bible version page. For recordings of nearly all of the teachings broadcast so far, go to www.relationshipwithcreatorradio.com or search on Google Relationship with Creator Radio. Transcripts are on the transcript of broadcast page. Books with teachings from 1998 till May 2019 are on the Books for Printing page. I publish regular email articles. Email me on james@endtimeissueministries.org to be added to the list, or to seek counsel or prayer, or give me feedback. Visit the website and use the article keyword cloud, table of contents, article search, and Google search to locate the information you're looking for. The keyword cloud is, 20, 30,000 words in alphabetical order. Table of contents, every page on the website. There are numerous ways you can find information on the website, and there's about 2,500 web pages, 1,250 web pages, 2,500 articles. So there's answers to a lot of your questions. Anyway, I'm out of time. You have a good weekend, and I hope to see you here next Friday.
Father, I come to you, lifting up my hands. By your grace I stand, just because you love me. I know your favor.
Are you aware that the Creator is indifferent to believers? If not, please listen to my broadcast on w4cy.com internet radio, or talk4tv.com internet TV. My name is Dr. James Robertson, and I've been walking closely with the Almighty Creator since 1993. Visit my website at www.endtimeissueministries.org for a lot of information about the matters of the Almighty. For back issues of broadcasts, visit www.relationshipwithcreatorradio.com or email me on james@endtimeissueministries.org to find out more. Folks, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.